Hi, my name is Nick Steever, and this is my action plan, my plan for action research. My topic is in classroom seating. I chose this topic because it was one of those things that I needed to sort of figure out. My first time that I had a classroom for an extended period of time, I stepped in right after right after the students had finished their PSSA, their standardized testing, and everything was in rows. It was a very large class. I couldn't move through it, which, being tall is great when you got to reach something, but when you're a teacher getting through a room full of desks, it's not easy. So I needed to figure out how to get the kids a little bit more like clumped together and stuff. But I also recognized that there was going to be a lot of challenges there with the personalities, things like that. I didn't want to be sort of setting myself up for a lot of behavioral corrections and stuff like that throughout the every day. Anyways, it's been pretty interesting researching it. One of the things that I was really expecting was to see that there was going to be a real sort of demonstrable difference between sitting in rows and sitting in various different places, different ways, or having fixed seats or flexible seats, and there really isn't. The sort of performance output of students is mostly consistent either way. The one thing that I have found a lot about was that there are a lot of mental health benefits, both for fixed seating and for flexible seating. And also there's, different benefits with regard to collaboration and types of activities that you can find with different specific arrangements of seats. Some of the things that inspired me the most are about collaboration. So a lot of my research led me to looking at studies that focus on collaboration. So, for instance, there was one Japanese study that I made my previous video about that was, really interesting. It found that circular arrangements are less preferable to half circle or crescent shaped arrangements for, cooperation and leadership, and, all the things that they were looking at were, everything was looking a lot better with that. I have also found that boys do a lot better in fixed seating. So with regard to flexible seating, girls tend to do better with that. That's not to say that there's not a lot of boys that like flexible seating to just be able to get up. I think a lot of students are going to like to get up, sit where they want to sit with their friends. And in some cases, this is what I found in the classroom myself, was where I had students that wanted to get up and go sit where they wanted with their friends so that they could do off-task things. So, but I also recognized that there was students that worked really well together, and so I really wanted to figure all of that out. As far as my sample would be, my participants, it would be a classroom. I think that this is the type of thing, it would be action research that happens more or less throughout my teaching. That's what I plan on doing with it, is just to have it be like, I anticipate having to figure it out every so often. And there's going to be times that kids get sick of sitting in the same place, and you do want to mix it up. So I really want to figure out a good method of, really having a system underneath me to back me up, to just be like, oh no, I can, this is going to work, better than that. This tends to work with this class, or these students, do really well with this type of thing. And I do also think I like mixing up the types of activities. So I would like to have a little bit of fluidity with where the seats are, and where kids could move around, and we could rearrange things even just period by period, but that of course is dependent on the school and the classroom and what resources we have for that particular learning environment. The type of data that I would collect, I would do pre-test, post-test. So I would test before, and this is just to find out where how kids are able to work together, how kids are able to respond to the different types of seating. I would test things out where, we would do an evaluation at the beginning or an assessment at the beginning, and then, go through the unit or the lesson and then assess again afterwards. And, in some cases it might even just be like we could do very similar activities and different things and just see day by day how they go. I would also do a lot of daily checks with just worksheet collection, the work that we do in class, collecting that, seeing who did it well, mostly who does it. I think that there's a lot can be said for like the kids that are consistently turning work in versus the kids who are not. And there are some kids who are not turning work in and they kind of just do it on their own time, and then all of a sudden you just get like hit with 6 missing assignments, and that's part of the job, I guess. But I think that where you have this kind of data collection where you're just looking at like, we have more kids turning in work when they're working together, or we have more kids turning in work when they're working independently, just so I could have a good system in place for the classroom while still being able to be flexible with different activities. I would plan to analyze all that data, especially with the assessment stuff. It would just be a matter of, did they do better here or there? You have 2 different assessments that are more or less, close, that you could see. And then with the daily check-in things, you could start picking apart patterns. I would say that like I would want to have it be like, just more or less of a yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Or how many students turned in work, like, so if I have 24 students and it's like, okay, I got 18 on Monday, 24 on Tuesday, 20 on Wednesday, things like that. And then that's where we're seeing like, depending on what we're doing with the seating in the classroom, to see where things kind of, where the chips are falling, and then that would be easily graphable, both of those things. This test was better than the other, bam, bar graph, or you could see like in a line graph like how things are going. I would plan to, I think the limitations with all this are, there's a lot of limitations with the classroom. There's a lot of nuances with students. They're not going to be totally on board with everything all the time. Some of them are going to be better one day at a time, and so it's, the limitations is it's not that empirical of a study. It's really just classroom like environment. It's just a regular part of the job. But I do think that I like the idea of looking at it with the action research lens, so that you could really figure out what works best for me, what works best for this classroom, what works best for those kids, and what works for different types of tasks and different types of activities. So it's intimidating to have to make data collection a big part of all of the normal day in, day out classroom stuff. So that's intimidating. But I also feel like, once you make a habit out of it, you can fall back on that habit. And especially if you have different, if you're good about putting things into a grading book, like if you're saying like yes, no, yeah, if it's just a matter of, okay, I got this kid, this kid, this kid, this kid, or even if it's just I got 17, I got 20, you have a little spreadsheet that you're working on. You're able to make things, start to form a pattern. Part that I'm looking forward to is just getting it figured out. I mean, honestly, it's I think it's just a part of being a good teacher is like figuring out how to have the classroom the way that you want to work in it. It's just like how a mechanic wants their tools, or how how a person keeps their desk, their workspace. Don't look at my workspace. By the way, it's specifically framed out of this camera angle. But yeah, that's a part that I'm looking forward to, and I just think is part of being a better teacher, and that's my main goal. So after this class, I really like to have gotten this this interest in this knowledge, to really see how to approach some of these things in teaching like a scientist, where it's honestly it's going back to the intimidating thing. There are so many parts of this profession that you have to wear so many hats, to be a scientist, and to be to be an expert, and to be a task manager, and to be a emotional support coordinator, like all the different things that you have to be. I mean, in some cases, a playmate. You have to be so many things all at once, and some of them don't synergize very well. So it's all, I think a part of the process of being a better teacher. So I'm looking forward to getting in the classroom with this new knowledge, and I'm going to figure out how to do classroom seating. I want that to be one of my strengths. I want to be able to have my kids do all kinds of different cool activities, and I want to be able to make things fun that they didn't think were fun. And I think that that's going to come down to how you present it, and part of how you present it is going to be like where you do it, where you're able to work on things. So that is more or less where I stand at the end of 7 weeks. Thank you.